You are watching Market Watch, the brief overview of the key events from the world of finance. Key U.S. stock indexes have paused, indicating the lack of a sufficiently strong growth driver. Just yesterday, it was said that more than 50% of the growth of the S&P 500 index is due to the growth of less than 10 stocks, or 2%. But according to many relevant experts, the growth potential of the largest companies in the United States has almost been exhausted. Bloomberg analysts predict a change of leaders in the second half of the year. These can be companies from the energy, healthcare, and financial sectors of the U.S. economy. But despite all the optimism of investors in the stock market, one should not forget about the risk of sales of key stock indices. After all, the demand for U.S. government bonds remains high, thereby pushing the U.S. dollar higher and higher. The growth of the U.S. dollar index indicates the still high interest of foreign investors in debt instruments denominated in U.S. dollars. One of these instruments is the bond of the American government, which in turn remains the standard of reliability. Simply put, the demand for a protective asset, despite the growth of stock indices, remains high, thereby indicating a lack of obvious optimism among professional investors. But speaking of protective assets, it is also necessary to mention gold. But it is not growing, but decreasing. At first glance, this may seem strange, because just a minute ago we were talking about the fact that demand for U.S. government bonds remains high due to an attempt to hedge risk, and here we note the weakness of gold. But it's all very easy to explain. The demand for U.S. government bonds is due to their high yield, which, for example, Japan does not have. Consequently, an investor holding Japanese government bonds has an income of less than 1%, which is expressed in Japanese yen, which has significantly weakened in pair with the US dollar. These investors transfer their capital from less profitable instruments to more profitable ones, but in the same class. Thus, the demand for protective assets and the US dollar is increasing, but gold is not getting more expensive. Shifting to the cryptocurrency market, let's pay attention to two important events. On the one hand, payments to creditors of the Mt. Gox exchange put pressure on Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. On the other hand, the probability of ETF approval for Ether increases, which should contribute to an increase in capital inflows to the cryptocurrency market. However, one should not expect the same effect as at the time of approval of applications for the creation of a Bitcoin ETF. Thus, the risk of a Bitcoin failure below $60,000 remains high, although demand under this mark is still high. That's all I have. Follow the news carefully and be prepared for all the surprises of the market.